You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by TVObsessive.com. Okay, welcome back to the TV Obsessive podcast. We're here for episode 23 today. As always, I'm Cameron Crane, the executive editor for TVObsessive.com, joined here by Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for the site. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I am doing wonderful, especially good. Today is Fargo Day, which we've been looking forward to for some time. I've never been anywhere near Fargo. Have you been up in that area at all?
I haven't actually. But see, here the thing is, I feel bad about it because I have an aunt who lived in North Dakota. She passed away when I was a teenager, and she was like really cool. And it's like one of these things where it's like, man, I really kind of wish I knew my Aunt April a little bit better. And I never made it out there to visit her while she was alive. She was a judge, so it's like
Oh, oh,
there's always
okay.
some way that when I watch Fargo stuff, I think of her, because I imagine her like in the courtroom having to deal with people like this or something like that. Uh,
So we wouldn't, neither of us know firsthand about this Minnesota nice. I know about Texas nice. That's sort of like, I'm going to draw a gun on you at any moment, but I don't know anything about Minnesota nice.
yeah, I mean, I get it a little bit. Figure out when I was a kid, I lived in like Michigan, and
Yeah.
and this is not the same thing because there's a very kind of stereotypical kind of Minnesota nice thing, but you know, I feel like I do have some experience that gets a little bit close with a little bit of that Midwestern vibe. So I don't know. I've always appreciated Fargo.
Yeah, same here. I think you and I are both very excited to certainly watch and also talk about this new season. It is getting very good reviews. We'll get into some of that. But well, I think I speak for both of us when I say that we're excited to not only watch the show but talk about it today. We're going to dig into the first couple of episodes in the second half of this show. Before we do that, so in terms of the news this week, anything in particular catch your eye?
I have a couple of cancellations. I mean, neither of these are things that I've watched. I don't know about you. Shadow and
Nor do I.
Bone. You watch Shadow and Bone on the Netflix?
Never.
No. Okay. I mean, apparently adapted from a book series. I know that, some people got really into it and people are upset that this one's been canceled. And then right before we came on, I read Muppets Mayhem has been canceled. So you got Disney canceling the Muppets on us.
You can't cancel Muppets. I mean,
I know. What's that about?
uncancelable.
I don't know. You noted Blue
on
Bloods is
on
gonna,
Shadow and Bone.
yeah.
On Shadow and Bone, this is one of these shows that multi novels, right? People are upset because it sort of went through part of the novels and not going to be able to finish the books. As I understand it. Is that right?
Yeah, my understanding on Shadow and Bone is that, and I think it was one of these things where maybe it had been renewed, or people really thought that there was going to be more. There's more source material. I think they'd also announced a spin-off show, and now they've come around and said, no, this show's canceled. There's not going to be any more. There's no longer going to be a spin-off show. You're out of luck. No more Shadow and Bone. It seemed to get kind of mixed reviews as far as I could tell, but it is one of
Yeah.
those things that some people were really into. It's kind of fandom, and just another example of how, I don't know about you, but increasingly it's just really hard to trust Netflix to give anything more than two seasons. It's just been so many shows that they've canceled after one season or canceled after two seasons when that there was a plan for more. You know, um,
Exactly. It doesn't seem to be much in terms of fan service in that regard. It's just a bottom line figure for them.
yeah, but I mean, Glow that happened to 1899 from the people who made Dark. The OA, of course, right, canceled after two seasons, and other things as well. Like we
It's,
could probably spend a long time rattling off a list.
Well, in terms of something that's been around forever, it seems like I can't say I've ever seen any of Blue Bloods, this Tom Selleck New York crime show, but it's going to end after season 14. I didn't realize it's been around for 14 years of our life.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I've never watched Blue Bloods. I kind of didn't realize it was still on.
Yeah.
I remember when it started because I had this job where I watched TV for Nielsen. I don't know if I ever told you about this job. um, but we'd watch TV and track
Mm.
product placements. And I remember when Blue
Oh,
Bloods premiered. I was like, oh, Tom Selleck, and yeah, that was like 14 years ago. So uh, I guess it's been going strong. In other, see, I feel like that's a dad show,
yes, very
and
much
in
so.
other dad show news, you've got plans for more Bosch. So for all the dads out there who are upset that Blue Bloods is that big, console yourselves. You're going to get another Bosch spinoff, more Bosch, right? So the Boschiverse
Yeah,
is
the Bosch verse.
it's going strong.
I'm a dad and never seen any Bosch. Is there something wrong with me? Do I need to go watch it? Is this what you're telling me?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I feel like somehow whatever it means to say is a dad show doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like it because you're a dad. I just feel like the real big demographic is probably dads. And like maybe older than you too. Like it's like dads in their 60s or
Yes.
something, like watching Bosch and Blue Bloods. Just maybe I'm being very stereotypical, but I know my dad likes Bosch.
Oh, okay. Well, I've heard that Jack Reacher is another big dad show coming back. So maybe I just need to get into that genre.
Yeah, my dad likes Reacher too. Like my
Oh, there
dad's in
you
his 70s, so but
go.
for whatever that's worth. Um,
Older dad genre. Okay, all right. No Boss for me, no Shadow and Bone. I'm just behind on all this good stuff. But there is stuff actually coming back. We're getting starting to get a lot of premiere dates announced. ABC has announced their lineup, Abbott Elementary, Grey's Anatomy coming back. NBC did the same. All the old standbys, Law and Order, all the Law and Order spinoffs, the Chicago Night, everything's coming back. So in January, early February, the people are putting pen to paper quickly and getting these shows back on the air.
yeah, and I think that the new NCIS premiered, and didn't put this in our notes, but in
Oh,
NCIS
really? I didn't realize
Sydney,
that.
I think that premiered. Always popular. NCIS was always my example of
Oh,
like you would think everyone watches Game of Thrones, and it's like no, everyone watches NCIS because it's like the highest
yeah.
rated show on television.
Is that show had all Australian actors, so they were able to record during the strike, I guess.
Oh, I don't know. I should have been more prepared. I didn't even put it in our notes. But yeah, we're getting some network TV back. In terms of what we're watching right now, I'm still on The Curse. And I was going to mention a couple of these
Yes.
promos we saw because the strike's over, you know, because the strike's over, we can get Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone promoting the show and giving us this extracurricular goodness, which I do appreciate. Um, did you
Yeah,
see that the
yeah, you
parody?
you brought this parody to my attention. Where did this come from?
I I think they just made it and put it online. They got together and they're parodying, and they did it within like 24 hours of the Anyone But You promo coming out, where you've got Sydney Sweeney and what's the guy's name, Glenn Powell or whatever,
No foul, yeah.
and so they make this promo for The Curse that's directly mimicking them, with this little bit like, I think it's my show. We'll see whose show it is when it comes out. It's like almost word for word. Um, but then
I
Nathan
mean, it is
Fielder
funny. 'Cause
posted.
obviously,
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it's funny. So my understanding, they did sort of a word for word, a shot for shot parody of this promo that Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney have done. Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney, I think, you're universally thought of as like two of the most beautiful people in the world. And so they're up there. Obviously, Emma Stone is incredibly talented. Nathan Fielder and all his talents. It's just quite striking to see a promo of Glenn Powell, Sidney Sweeney, you can just put them on this in front of a screen, and their two faces are going to attract people to watch. And then you got Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think Emma Stone is very attractive. Nathan Fielder, I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I'm straight, but I guess some people find Nathan Fielder attractive, but that's part of the humor, I think, and the thing. And then when they were on Kimmel too, he was acting like he was a really huge celebrity. Um, but the funniest thing about that is he showed up with like these small sunglasses, and I don't know, you'd have to look at how he was dressed, but he started saying like, no, this is me in real life. You gotta, I'm a laid back, chill dude. Um, I'm not this stiff guy. That was a character. And he's like really hung up on this New York Times review that says Emma Stone's a great actor in The Curse, and then there's Fielder, and he's like, this is wrong, and he like gets Jimmy Kimmel to call the New York Times to try to get them to issue a correction.
Oh boy. The, this again, at some point, we're gonna have to spend some time with this show. I mean, it's one of those. It's hard to just consume it and let it sit. You need to marinate on it and sort of let your thoughts bubble up. So at some point, we're gonna have to do that. But that is also a show that I'm watching. What else is on your viewing list?
No, I mean, basically, I've been doing The Curse. I've been doing The Murder at the End of the World. I'm writing on both of those, and then watching Fargo for our podcast here today, and that pretty much filled my docket up this week. I mean, I watched some football, but that's about it. Other than those three. What about you?
Yeah, I was gonna say we're back, man. We got like real good TV that's filling up our hours. Been on a very similar trajectory with shows that I'm watching. Speaking of football, I don't know if I believe you're a Hard Knocks fan. The in-season version with the Miami Dolphins starts tonight on HBO. This is a fascinating team this season, and I'm definitely going to start watching this. Did you happen to catch any of the Cardinals version last year, the in-season version?
Oh, I haven't. I've never watched Hard Knocks all that much. I watched some this off season with the Jets. I was kind of taken with that. Man, could you imagine if they were doing in season with the Jets right now?
Oh my gosh, I would love it. I mean,
This is just bench Zach Wilson, and like it would be awful. It would be it'd be like more excruciating than The Curse to see what's going on behind the scenes of the New York Jets right now. But the Dolphins, I love Mike McDaniel. What about you?
I absolutely do. I mean, this guy is great. This guy is so media when he talks to him. He is boisterous when he's on camera. I mean, he's just a great, I think, a great person and a great team to sort of lead this in season version. This is a really fun team with some interesting personalities on it. Yeah, Mike McDaniel, as he's sort of getting involved and sort of getting under the hood with him and seeing what he's really like as he leads a team through been a pretty good season. I'm very excited about.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, right? I'm presuming you've seen these things before. Maybe you haven't. I'm going to give you two options. Okay, the question is favorite Mike McDaniel press
Okay.
conference moment. Okay, option one. This is pretty recent. This is last
Okay.
week. Devon Achan's coming back from injury. The guy asks him a kind of detailed, pushing question about Devon Achan's usage. Like, do you think you'll see a normal amount of usage coming off this injury, or and Mike McDaniel said, how much money do you have invested in fantasy football? Did you see that clip? So, okay,
Yes. Yes.
that's option one. Option two, which I might prefer, but I don't know. It's kind of a toss up. Uh, Way back after week 5,
Yes. It's already
they
yes. It's already
yeah,
happened.
they point out how the Dolphins have beat the stats of this greatest show on turf Rams, and he says mission accomplished.
I mean, gets up there and says, "Oh, Yes, absolutely. We were going for most yardage after 5 games in a season.
That
I
was our
mean,
goal coming into the
yeah,
season.
that was our
Yeah.
goal. Yes, I hope we see some more of that in depth with this team. I hope it's as good sort of publicly as he is behind closed doors. This is, I mean, this is going to be an every Tuesday night thing for me for sure. Once I think this is six episodes. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I really might have to check it out because he's just a riot. But I mean, he also seems like an incredibly good coach. He cares about his players. He just seems like a really, really great coach. And all together, big fan of Mike McDaniel and what he's doing with that team.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Very much looking forward to that. So yeah, I'll be tuning into that tonight. Last week, Monarch opened up with the first 2 episodes out of 10. The next one coming out later this week. I wrote about this for the site. I quite liked it. I quite of how I think I described it sort of filled in some of the cracks or fix some of the holes that these MonsterVerse movies have created over the past 9 years, and really I think laid out what maybe something like the MCU could learn from some of these shows. We're not trying to do too much. They're trying to make human elements out of it. They're trying to sort of show the aftermath and real human experience in something traumatic like this. So the first 2 episodes were quite good. There's some time jumping you kind of have to get used to, and sort of who's sort of so some of that time jumping that can be a bit disorienting. But I really enjoyed the first 2, and looking forward to 8 more weeks of Monarch.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounded really interesting to me. I'm not up to speed on all the films, I guess, but that kind of idea, as you described it, of
Yeah.
sort of filling in around the edifice, patching up the cracks or whatever, however you want to put it. That sounds like a really interesting approach as opposed to the ever expanding kind of
You
MCU.
know, exactly. And those movies since they were first put on the big screen, 60, 70, 80 years ago, it was always what happens with this large experience, this sort of grand thing that happens with some city or some place that they destroy, and then they either destroy the monster or the monster gets away, and that's the movie. You never sort of see what the show does a good job doing.
Well, yeah. And they tried a bit in the Matthew Broderick movie.
So
But
that doesn't exist.
no, it was bad. It was bad because it was too much about the human beings. It was just like, where's Godzilla?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember being so disappointed in that. And I worked in a movie theater when that came out, and they put it on like every screen in the movie theater, and they had just like 20 million showings. And then I feel like it flopped and was gone in a couple of weeks.
So here's a quick story about.
Yeah.
I have a quick story about that. So
Okay.
this was my wheelhouse. I think that movie came out in '98. So '96, Independence Day comes out. This massive movie. Probably saw it 3 or 4 times. '97, Titanic comes out. Saw it 3 or 4 times. This massive thing. So me, I thought, oh, next in line is Godzilla. I mean, this is sort of ultra popcorn masterpiece movie that everyone's going to fall in love with. Was certainly I was wrong about that one. That was number one on my list that year, but it did not live up to the hype. If I must say so.
Yeah, unfortunately. Same. I seem to recall like working at the movie theater, usually we could see movies for free. And I feel like right when that came out, they told us we couldn't, at least right at first, because it was such a big deal. And I think I paid to see it.
Yeah.
It was really disappointing. It's burned in my memory.
Oh.
And like,
All right. Well, no, it's better. So we got some good MonsterVerse content coming up.
yeah, it's good. Okay, well, so should we get to Fargo?
Yes, please. Really excited about talking about this.
Yeah, so we're talking about season 5 premiere of Fargo on today's podcast, episodes 1 and 2. It's a 2-episode premiere, which came out today, Tuesday, November 21st. We're on top of this, okay? So the plan is that this podcast will come out basically like immediately after it's aired on FX. So huge spoiler warning to everyone, right? I think that the episodes don't drop on Hulu until tomorrow. That might be at midnight. I'm not sure what time it is that it shows up on Hulu, regardless, to try to get this out right around midnight after it's aired on Netflix on FX at 10 and 11. So spoilers on the table for the season 5 premiere. That's episode 1 and episode 2, season 5 of Fargo. And yeah, we're going to dig into the episode in detail here on the other side of our little break.
As Cameron said, we will be coming to you the same night Fargo airs every week of this new show. And so we are very excited to talk about season 5. And just a quick recap before we get in to some of the depth of the first 2 episodes. We start by seeing precocious and peppy housewife Dot, who is at a school board meeting in her home of Scandium, a bunch of violence happening over some issue, probably something to do with the library, and she tasers a couple of police officers, landing her in jail and getting her fingerprinted overnight. She is released the next morning and allowed to go back home to her husband Wayne and their daughter. But while at home that next day, 2 masked men come attack her, and they eventually, after a lot of work on her part and a lot of intuitive and innovative. But the kidnappers' van, once they get into North Dakota, is pulled over, and Dot escapes. The kidnappers kill one of the troopers, injure another, an officer named Witt. Dot is able to run over to a nearby gas station where she sets up a series of traps and things that end up killing one of the kidnappers, injuring another, and she also helps save Officer Witt at the same time. She runs off without anyone helping her. She just went out to clear her head for a while after being arrested and spending the night in jail. Wayne's overbearing and rich mother, Lorraine, doesn't exactly buy all of this and thinks that Dot may be up to something to help steal their family fortune. So she has put her lawyer on the case, trying to figure out what's going on. And meanwhile, as we dig into a little bit of Dot's background and learn that she may not be who she says she is, we're introduced to Sheriff Roy Tillman, sheriff of their area of Minnesota, and his loyal son Gator, who are trying to track down Dot because Roy used to be married to her. Something in Dot's past gives her a Liam Neeson voice special set of skills, and we don't exactly know what that is. And we just know that Roy and Gator and Lorraine and the police are all trying to sort of figure out what happened to Dot, get to the bottom of this mystery, and also who she is. While at the same time, Dot confronts her family and saying she's going to keep up the family life that she has going in Scandia, Minnesota. There's a lot going on in these first 2 episodes. You and I think both agree we wish this was a 1 episode rollout, but we deal with the hand that we've got. And I don't know, based on all of that, that's all of this sort of character we've just been introduced to. What are your general thoughts here on the first couple of episodes of Fargo?
Yeah, to start with one of the last things you said, I watched the first episode. I thought, man, I wish we could stop and talk about this right now. Because as you went through all of that, naturally you kind of run together things from the first episode with the second episode. First episode kind of raised questions that maybe you could make inferences about for yourself, and then it gets kind of spelled out in episode 2. Fair enough, like this is how TV works. But particularly when the first episode is so strong, because I thought that was great, and you end with her mixing pancakes in the kitchen and all of that. And I was like, I'm hooked. This is, the mix of the kind of dark humor, the kind of radical violence, which I think is actually a part of the dark humor, and then her delusional kind of, oh no, everything's fine. What are you saying, hon? Like this is like, okay, yeah, man, this is Fargo. I just feel fully kind of back in terms of the way that this show earns the name Fargo. It's largely about the tone. If we think back to the Coen Brothers film and all of that, and I felt like immediately I was sucked into that. What about you?
Yeah, this really I think sucked me in these first two episodes. There was, I guess, sort of a natural progression first to the second, but it just, I think, really had a powerful punch right out of the gate here. I was someone who was quite down on seasons 3 and 4. 1 and 2, I thought, were pretty much perfect, staying in macabre nature of the film. And 3 and 4 were, in my mind, sort of letdowns. And this, at least in the first two episodes, I mean, right back to where I'd hoped it would always be. I was very, very impressed and can't wait to dig into the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly you're not alone in that about the, a lot of people are saying, oh, it feels like it's back. I feel that, I don't know. I don't want to believe, get down on the previous seasons so much necessarily, but part of it might be the time period that we're set in, and here we're sort of back to now, or it's not now, it's 2019. They tell us it's 2019. I don't know how much that matters, but it's not after 2020, it's before 2020, just a note, you know. Um, but I think it still lands as, in that space of the felt present. And that's part of what it has going for it, I think.
I think personal set in 2019, I think it mattered for John Hamm's character, who is Sheriff Roy Tillman. I think it mattered for his son Gator. I think it mattered for sort of a cultural and social and political environment where you have people at each other's throats about what issues going on at a school board meeting. That's how the show starts. I think Wayne's mom, Lorraine, is the CEO of a debt corporate greed angle to it. So I think the 2019 angle is important and sort of sets the stage for maybe people that might be emboldened because of certain things going on in this country.
No, I definitely think so. I just feel like I think a lot of those cultural elements still feel pertinent now in a
Yes.
meaningful way. But
Yes.
like COVID's not in this story. I don't think, right? Unless it happens later. I doubt they'll do that. But you are getting that setting and Roy Tillman. So John Hamm. I'm gonna work through the characters a little bit here. I don't know about you, but John Hamm was a big thing I was looking
Yes.
forward to here. Totally delivered. You had you sent this my way about his nipple rings, and I feel bad for anyone who's reading that before they watched it. Insofar as when I was watching it, I saw him in his outdoor. Do we call this like a wooden hot tub or what? I don't know what to call it. Do those
But some
exist? Yes, he's in his repose, his moist repose, or what have you. And when I was watching it, I was sitting there and I started thinking, like, wait a minute, does he have nipple rings? Yeah. Yeah, he does. He has two nipple rings. So I definitely do think that it is effective in the way it's supposed to be. Having read the story where like Noah Hawley's talking about it or whatever. Um, but the way it played for me as a little bit of a surprise, I thought was good too.
Yeah, I can't say that, if you paint me a picture of maybe who this, I think Noah Hawley said that he wanted John Hamm to be more than a sort of Bible thumping, conservative, uh, you know, middle of nowhere sheriff. That was, a piece of sort of what that character too much time necessarily on these, with this one particular decision to make about this character, but just that John Hamm, I think, ever since the trailer came out, was sort of the draw of who he was going to be, and as you said, certainly has delivered so far. Has have many of the other characters.
Yeah. So we open, I mean, like, meaningfully, we open in episode 2. He's just kind of there in episode 1, which I enjoyed. But in episode 2, you get him delivering that monologue about the natural order of things. And,
Yes.
is there tension between that and the nipple rings? For me, part of the point is that the answer is no. If we can, conceive of him as a real person existing in our world, as it were, existing in North Dakota in 2019, Um, and then how he tells the FBI agents all this stuff about how he is the law, and he lists off ridiculous statutes and all of that. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's very entertaining.
I had something to say about that yeah, that particular part where he's talking to FBI agents when he is listing some of these archaic and ancient laws maybe that exist in Minnesota and North Dakota. I found it interesting that there's sort of some parallels there between maybe what he's saying there and maybe how much he's supposed to be sort of this right wing Christian conservative, and he's maybe referencing that in relation to old laws, part of the old his new law, the thing that he knows what the right thing is to do. He knows how to defend his territory. He knows how to take care of people. And so, these old things you might actually consider quote unquote the law don't matter as much as what he thinks should be done, which is right for his people. That's just sort of this macho attitude that he brings to the character that I thought to be really good.
Yeah, and I think it fits in a certain way. I mean, it exemplifies a certain tendency in our political life. Um, whether we're thinking of Trump, MAGA, whatever, but more broadly, or to try to conceptualize it a little bit more, I think there is that kind of, I don't know, vibe of something along these lines of, it's not even a respect for the law. I don't even know how to put this now. It's not like you're pointing to traditional laws and rules, even so much as like the feeling of this tradition embodied through like the figure of the righteous man or something like this, right? Like Roy Tillman here is this
Mm.
figure who has absolutely no doubt in his mind that he knows what is right with like the force of God behind him. And that's and like not even the authority of a religious institution or something could make him question that. That's what I'm kind of trying to get at.
Yeah, yeah, and I found that so. His son Gator, played by Joe Shirley, as you'll surely recognize, is loyal, is trying to be replicative, but is about as far emotionally and maybe even mentally as you can be from John Hamm's character, and it's just very very interesting. It's almost like trying to follow Daddy's footsteps, but never going to do anything to get anywhere close to where he's going to be.
Yeah, he's trying. He's just kind of like he thinks he's tough because he's vaping. I mean, um,
Right.
but yeah, it's working. You try to avoid thinking of this, Steve. Um, the scene that I thought it was a little bit weird in the hospital. I don't know if you have a line on this. When he deletes the picture from
Mm.
Deputy Olmstead's phone, why? He doesn't want him to show it. He doesn't want her to show it to Wit, I guess, but still, like, I'm still not entirely sure I get that. Do you have a good line on that?
So I think if my take on it was if Wit sees it, he can positively identify that that's who it was. The officer already knows her and is aware of who she is, where she lives, can put the pieces together to start to say, oh, yes, these events actually happened. Whereas Gator and Roy are fine for them to say, no, those things didn't happen because clearly they're the ones that hired Old Munch to go kidnap her. So I think that he's wanting to sort of clear Dot and Wit so that the deputy can't put any of that together.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's absolutely right. Obviously, it's almost obvious. I did, but like because they want to keep the cops out of it.
Yes.
There's this through line though where it's like it's kind of ridiculous how people are trying to keep the cops out of something the cops are entirely on top of. Like Dot herself's like, oh no, I was just driving around, and of course Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, Mama Lion Lorraine, she wants to keep the police out of it. And I guess Roy Tillman and Gator are the police, but they want to keep the police out of it, right? Like, and
Yeah.
and and yeah, but at the same time, our deputy in Dear Olmsted, uh, it is one of these things. Thinking about this as Fargo, she's I think she's ultimately the protagonist, or at least she's like the Frances McDormand
I,
character here, right?
I think very much like the Francis McDermott character. I think very much like that one, very much like the Alison Toman character from season one, where you sort of have a moral compass, a moral center, someone who's actually trying to put pieces together and do the right thing, if that's possible, amongst all this chaos and all these chaotic characters. So I actually was very, I want to say, sympathetic and empathetic to, Deputy Olmstead's character. Um, this tracks very similarly, checks a lot of the boxes, particularly of the movie in season one for me. And yeah, I just found her very much in the same vein.
Yeah, and but then again, repeat myself. They've got all this evidence, like, hey, we found two types of blood in the house that aren't yours. We found, this burnt ski mask, like all of this stuff, and here you have Dot trying to say nothing happened. Now, do you think that her husband,
Yeah.
he plays along, her husband Wayne, played by David Bristol, um, what do we make of him though? Like, does he really believe her, or is he just,
Oh boy, this is, I don't know if there is a one character that I thought was sort of a paragon or a stereotype of a particular person. It was certainly Wayne, just sort of the emasculated man pulled between family and for themselves, can't do anything on their own, and that's fine. I think he plays that character very, very well. I think that this is a character, if I'm sort of recalling my experience with this type of guy, that's always going to sort of side with the with the mother and believe what the mother says, very much under her thumb. I don't think he believes Dot and her story of, oh, nothing happened, it's all just a farce. Someone
get the feeling almost that he's gonna believe whoever he's talking to at the moment. Because
mm,
by the end of episode two, it is kind of like that has sucked him in, which is absurd because he comes home and she's like home alone, the house all up, and got their daughter involved and like putting live wires around the windows and making a zombie killer bat and like all of this stuff. But she manages to get him to like be on board enough, and then they sit down and have dinner. He just seems completely um I don't know, spineless, or I mean, he's a likable guy at the same time, but he's just going to be
yes, yeah, I
persuaded
think
by whoever he's talked to last.
spineless is a very good word, a very good way to describe him. I did, the obviously whatever the background is of Dot. We should talk about her in a second. The background of Dot that allows her to, come up with all of these schemes, these plans, this is fascinating. It also though lends me to think that I don't think someone who has got the Jason Bourne skills that she has would have flied off the handle and tasered a cop, sort of putting her in this position in the first place. But that's just one of these things I'm going to have to look past. I think just to sort of set up what this story is.
Yeah, I don't know, because we don't know what we like. What does she have that background? Like she's some super sleeper agent,
Yeah,
or what? Um, if so, I mean, I think it could fit to some degree. It's just kind of like violent mode is activated in that moment, the melee of the meeting, the feeling
yes,
threatened. I think I think just a minor correction. I think she tasered one cop. I think the first guy
yeah,
she hit with the taser was like the math teacher. I think that comes
that's
out
right.
ultimately.
That's right.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean the way it all plays out, she asks whether her prints are going to go into the system and all of that. There's this undercurrent of her as being very she's very like, what word do I want, calculating, whereas on the surface level she's like Minnesota nice, and you have that great scene where Lorraine comes to see her and they're talking at the table, and Dot all of a sudden just like drops the act and says like, come at me, bitch, and I'm gonna kill you. Right. And then puts the act back up. It's great.
Yeah, I think that, and this plays a little bit into the one thing I could not quite tell was, is she in that scene doing a different accent than the Minnesota accent she's doing for the most of the rest of the series? I mean, clearly we have to talk about her being, just incredibly British and her transformation from who she was in Ted Lasso into this character. But was that two different accents that I heard from her?
I don't know. It's a good question. I did see something about Juno Temple and how much she worked on the accent. Apparently she
Hmm.
stayed in the accent all the time on set, whether they were filming or not. And really had to work on it, and I think she does a great job. So is it supposed to be a different accent? I think becomes the real question you're asking, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I don't know. I
I
don't
think
know.
maybe it is playing the Minnesota Nice character, playing along as part of this family environment that she's been dropped into, playing this role so that she can hide in plain sight away from the John Hamm character. And yes, there's a lot of stuff out there about how she was on the set of Ted Lasso, starting to refine and practice this Minnesota accent. But she just, I mean, it's hard to kind of separate those two. And for how much I love the other show, but I mean, I think she's starting to win me over with it.
No, no, I mean, I think she's doing a great job. Just to be clear, what I was saying, I don't know. I don't know what I think even. The question is like, is it supposed to be a different accent to where you could read something into that about the character that her character is putting on the Minnesota accent, right?
Yes.
And I'm
Yeah.
not sure. Maybe it's interesting to think about, right? The other option would just be that because she kind of goes from um chipper fake nice to quiet and serious, is that the only real difference here, that she's kind of lowering her voice and not putting on so much affect, as it were. um
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, she was a great, and there was a great intimidating scene. As she sits there with the rain and trying to say, "People that cross me don't live." Yeah, just good duality there between her, the characters there that she's trying to play. Clearly, she's trying to hide who who she was. I mean, she
yeah.
certainly is the star of the show. She certainly is already, I think, going to be in an Emmy conversations, and she's just doing a fantastic job in the first two episodes.
And it's worth noting, I believe in our synopsis, you said Roy used to be married to her. He says she is his wife.
Oh
He
yes.
doesn't say it in the past tense. So I don't know. I guess I just think that's worth noting here, right? Like, probably there wasn't a divorce or anything. I don't know. What happened there is another question, in other words. And to what extent is, when you open with a monologue that Roy gives to the guy in the diner, you can definitely read into that he views his wife as his property. She's still his property. That's what he's saying, regardless of where everything
Yeah.
stands. So what happened between them? Um, did she like murder some people in North Dakota and run away? There all kinds of things are possible
I,
there.
I I just I do have faith that this show will fill us in on those. I think it's very good about world building and still drawing out a very compelling story. I think the first two seasons were very good at that. So I have a strong hunch we will see what has happened there. And frankly, assuming there are some, I can't wait for the Temple John Hamm scenes where they're in the on the screen together.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Um, I feel like we should hit on Jennifer Jason Lee a little bit more, and then also talk about Dave Foley. Their scenes
Yeah.
together. I think the acting's great. Maybe a good place to start is with the Christmas photo with the guns, because our like primary family unit, Dot, Wayne, and Scotty, they seem totally uh unwarned about the fact that they're going to be asked to hold guns here. All of a sudden, like, ever hold guns, and they go along.
Yeah. I mean, as someone from Texas, I don't see the big deal. I mean, every other postcard we get is someone holding guns. So this is not a surprise to me, right? Maybe this is rare up there in Minnesota. No, in all seriousness, I just love the quote of, "Oh, you have to show strength, right? Don't let yourself get out there in public without telling people how strong you are, showing them how strong you are." Of the world that we were living in 2019 before things went to hell, and showing strength is certainly what this the certainly the mother seems to be about. The rest sort of seems subservient to her, but she's definitely about showing strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it made me think about these real world examples. Like, yeah, how often is it the case that someone else is like, "Hey, you have to hold a gun"? Maybe I've made a mistake in presuming that everyone was on board with the gun Christmas card. She's a force of nature, clearly.
Yeah,
Lorraine
yeah.
here, and Dave Foley plays her faithful lawyer named Danish, which I find amusing. Um, I feel like Foley's doing a good job here. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is this a dramatic role? I mean, it's somewhat comedic, but I feel like I haven't seen Dave Foley in a lot of dramatic roles, and um, kind of impressed with him so far.
Yeah, I was news radio for the first time, all but the last season, the one without Phil Hartman, and found that show to be incredibly funny. Found him to be his comedic timing to be just exceptional, and I think that he's bringing a lot of that to this role as well, in terms of how he looks, in terms of his demeanor, in terms of what he says, in terms of the reaction when Lorraine tells him to slap the son when they're on the phone together. I mean, I was very happy to see him again. I think he did a tremendous job for Lorraine.
Yeah, you a fan of Kids in the Hall?
I've seen a little bit of Kids in the Hall. I've not seen a lot of it.
Ooh,
I did plow through news radio, but now that I enjoyed that, I think I need to go revisit some more Dave Foley stuff.
yeah, they did. They did a new season of Kids in the Hall just a couple years ago,
Mm,
and I actually thought it was quite good. I don't know if you don't have the background of being a fan of the Kids in the Hall 20, 25 years ago, how
yeah,
does it land for you now? My line was sort of like, it's Kids in the Hall except they're old now. It's still good. It's still landed as well as the old stuff for me as a Kids in the Hall fan. But I wonder if they'll
yeah,
get another season of that. I should try to look into that. Probably they've said nothing. I
probably.
know they want another season, but um, I don't know that anything's been announced about it. They might not get one.
Yeah, no, good addition. I just was looking here. He looks to be one of the last people they added. Yeah, that's a tremendous addition. I mean, who they already had. I think he balances some of the real strong personalities there as sort of this a little bit more lighthearted, comedic. He can carry some of that weight in these scenes, and he certainly does.
Yeah, and he has an eye patch, and we don't know why, and I don't
Right.
know that we'll find out why.
Don't need to.
Yeah, I don't know that we will, or that we need to find out why Danish has an eye patch. But yeah, man, I think this is great so far. I'm looking
There are a lot
forward to
of
the rest of the season.
things to find out so far. A lot of mysteries certainly, which is sort of a hallmark of this show. I think there's a lot that will be revealed, a lot probably that won't, and we'll end up at the end of the day saying, that's fine. I think we got revealed what we needed to, and the story was and the mystery were good along the way.
Right, like we don't need old Munch's backstory.
Right.
It's just not what Fargo's gonna do. He's great too, though. By the way, I don't think we really talked about him. Presumably, we'll see him more as he's the wild card character, as it were, right? But episode 2 ends with Gator finding that his partner has been killed in the parking lot of the gas station, right? And Old Bunch is saying, "You owe me money," right?
Exactly.
Because instead of paying him, and he has a point. They told him he was going to kidnap a housewife. They didn't tell him he was going to snare a tiger. He has a point, right? But they didn't pay him. They tried to kill him.
I
And
think that yeah, that I mean it's a fantastic point. I mean, I like the the reference of, I think Wayne and Dot's last name is Lion. He calls her the Tiger. Not exactly what he was expecting, and sort of one of these. I've got a foil now that sort of meets my expectation of someone who's a worthy adversary. So I think definitely after the end of episode 2, we'll be seeing a lot more of Old Munch.
Yeah. And triangulate the conflicts, right? Old Munch is now in conflict primarily with Roy Tillman, who's after Dot, whose mother-in-law thinks she's trying to defraud the family, and they all want to keep the cops out of it. And then we've got our good cop. Well, I think we've got two good cops, right? Because I think Wit's also a good cop ultimately, and he'll get out of the hospital, and something will happen there.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think it's a spoil thing in a hospital bed. So I think he's quite prominent in this season.
yeah. All right, man. Yeah. Well, so I'm looking forward to watching the rest of this. Again, we're going to be back each week on Fargo season 5. That's the plan. Anything else you want to hit on before we get out of here today, Ryan?
I think that's about it. We've covered the characters. We've covered just sort of our thoughts so far. This is going to be a fun one to cover. Obviously, also have episode 3 here on November 28th, and we'll have a podcast. Assuming nothing goes haywire, we'll have a podcast up that very same night.
Yeah, sounds good. That's the plan. So, okay. Hopefully everyone's into Fargo. You can also go and read the recap of this premiere by Felicia Nickens on tvobsessive.com. And we'll be back next week. Thanks always for listening. Do check out the website, follow us on social media, give us a good review wherever you're listening to the podcast. Maybe go to YouTube and hit subscribe if you want to do me a favor. And we'll see you next week.
All right, can't wait for it. See you then.